Okay, just letting you guys know, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute Chambers. And we are live streaming on YouTube.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Sounds like a lunch whistle or? I guess since we're live, I guess we can start. Call the meeting to order, roll call. Elaine's here, Andy is here, Mike Didio has been excused, Trish Kerr is here, Heidi Nightingale is here, Chris Petrus has been excused. I guess minutes to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Appointments. We have one for the Traffic Safety Committee. Monica, I hope I'm saying this right. It's Sacco, S-A-C-C-O. As far as I know, she's a new appointment to the Traffic Safety Committee. Motion?
Nightingale, move it.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Daly. Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. We can move right into department updates. Ms. Spengler is on the video. Denise, go right ahead.
Good evening. I apologize, but I wanted to save everybody from spreading anything. We actually have been hit a little bit with COVID, more now than we have in the past 2 years. I've got actually 5 people out. I'm testing negative, so I've got something, but it doesn't seem to be COVID. So in regards to my report, just want to touch on a couple of things. The issues in the southern end that we're working through. Essentially, I'll send out a more detailed report, kind of where we were and how we got to where we are today. But essentially, there's some gaps down there, and they were known gaps from the beginning. And trying to explain to responders that there are going to be dead spots. Systems are not built for 100% coverage. It's almost impossible to do that. But we are working on some coverage concerns down south. I did get some information back from Motorola that I'm going to review with Legislator Strong, but we had to cancel that today just because again, not feeling well. So hopefully beginning of next week, I can review that with him, and then we can kind of come up with a plan for how to present that information and try to move forward. In regards to the center, we recently just presented a Lifesaver Award, and this is basically given to somebody who we can assess based on the call performance that they indeed did save a life. Hayden Longest took a call 2 weeks ago with a woman who was choking. She was actually choking on a piece of lobster, and he walked the family through the Heimlich. Got as far as even chest compressions, because at one point she became unconscious, and then they got her revived. So, and I got a really nice email from the responders on scene that, without his help, the woman may not have survived. So those are always not good calls, but it's nice to hear that, the process that we have in place really do make a difference. So we presented him with a Lifesaver Award recently. And the only other thing I have is in regards to the old Cato Tower. The vendor was supposed to be on site today to start the process of the removal of that tower. So, once that's completely done, I'll advise that that project's completed. We're still working on the co-location of the Red Creek on our Sterling site. So probably next month I'll bring a resolution for an agreement with that. That's minimal equipment in the site, really not going to have a big impact. So it'll probably be small revenue, but it's something. I haven't heard anything from T-Mobile on the IRA site, so that one's kind of on on standstill for right now. And I think that's all I have for tonight, unless anybody has anything for me.
Denise, I think you have one resolution, JP one.
I'm drawing a blank.
It's authorizing the chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature to sign an
Oh,
agreement.
yeah,
with
the
federal
iPause. I'm
emergency-
sorry. Thank you. Yes, this is iPause. This is it's exactly what that resolution says. It's a public alert system. Basically, the FEMA will send out alerts to community members in our area for that they'd be, like large scale events that they would, excuse me. They basically push information. It's kind of like our hyper reach system, but this is coming straight from the federal government. There's no cost to this. They just require an agreement from the county for us to subscribe to it.
Move it.
I have a motion on the floor for JP one.
Nightingale, second.
I have a second from legislator Nightingale. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Carried. Thank you, Denise.
Mark, can I?
Oh, hang on.
I was just curious, Denise, how are you doing in filling those positions now that the test is out and the list is out and all of those things?
Thank you, Elaine. We just did interviews. I have 4 people that are going through the background process right now.
Right.
Yep, once we get through that process, we're hoping to have that information back. The sheriff's department actually conducts those.
Uh-huh.
Once we get that information back, we send them for drug testing. We're hoping to start a training class August 22nd.
Great. Okay, because that's 4 openings you currently have,
It's
right?
4. Yeah, correct. Yep.
Okay, does anybody else have anything for Ms. Spengler? Hearing none. Thanks, Denise. Get well soon.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along, we have Lloyd Hoskins from assigned counsel. Lloyd?
Thank you, Chairman. My report was sent out. If there's any questions or concerns. It's been another busy month. The only thing I'd like to add to my written committee report is today we received notice. I let Chairman Gould know that last month, I think I indicated that we had a meeting with Indigent Legal Services in regards to a $3.1 million grant for the next 2 years. I got approval on that today, so we can look forward to that money flowing into the county for the next 2 years, on top of the distribution money that we currently get from Indigent Legal Services. So they're making a real effort to bring legal services to those that can't afford it.
And actually fund them too.
And they actually fund them.
All right.
Part of that funding includes, as you all know, I had submitted my retirement in January. We're just getting around to it. Went through civil service. It's been graded. It's been through all their approvals. And there's a resolution tonight, and I would like the committee's consideration on approving that resolution. It's to fill a supervising attorney position in the assigned counsel office. The rules have changed. It has to be an attorney in the office now. I'm gonna continue as part-time during the transition. This supervising attorney's position is 100% paid for, salary, fringe benefits, by part of this $3 million grant.
Okay, so I'm assuming you want to go right ahead and do that.
Yep.
I'll need a motion for JP.
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion by legislator Daley. Second by legislator Kerr. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
Is this a full-time job for this assigned attorney?
It is.
Full-time, and it is somebody local in our county?
We haven't put anything out yet,
Okay,
because it hasn't been approved by the board, by the legislature. This will go before the entire legislature for approval.
and who picks this person? Like, do you pick them, or who picks this person?
I believe it. I think I believe it's my pick.
Okay, thank you.
You're the part-time executive director, sort of, at this point.
Correct,
So,
correct.
and there's minimum quals for this position.
Yes,
And Diane will, advertise it and
Exactly, yes.
Legislator Basile, go ahead.
So this, I heard this was fully funded by a grant.
Yes.
And what happens when that runs out?
That was a concern we had in a telephone conversation, Lynn Marinelli and myself and the chairman. This was a settlement, a lawsuit settlement, which is not like a grant. And so this settlement is a yearly settlement that the state has to abide by. And we asked the same question, what happens if it runs out? And we were pretty well assured that it's not going to run out. In fact, every year it doubles. I mean, we get, after year 4 and 5, this amount doubles again, so.
Do we know how long that goes on for? I'm sorry.
We don't, but
The way it sounded like the guy from Albany, Jim, said it's gonna go on for eternity, believe me. I think that's the word he used.
can I just clarify a question? With you retiring or stepping back,
Mhm.
there was no way we were going to be able to fill your position, even though you've been here 50 years,
Right.
without having an
42.
attorney, without having an attorney. Isn't that true?
that's correct.
Because you were grandfathered in.
That's correct.
There's no way that an attorney won't be present if we continue in this form.
If we want the 3 million, we have to have an attorney's presence in the office.
So basically, grant or no grant, the position's got to be filled.
There won't be anybody in the office.
Legislator Nightingale.
So you talked about you would be there during the transition. Are you transitioning toward full retirement then?
I'm not, my appointment is until February. And I would like to continue part-time, just doing specific, the grant writing, the centralized arraignment program, specific projects, but truly work part-time. I mean, I'm considered part-time now, but David knows how it goes. It's 25 hours, 30 hours a week, so.
And this attorney will also do cases as well as supervise or no?
I would hope that it would be a small caseload for the attorney, yes. Because we're lacking attorneys as it is, and to take one more out of the pool and just have them strictly do administrative. So yes, I would hope that a small caseload could be assigned.
Any other discussions for Lloyd? Legislator.
So the supervising attorney will do the assignment, so you can pull away from that?
Yes,
Any other questions for Mr. Hoskins? Hearing none, all in favor of motion JP2?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Any other questions?
thank you,
Lloyd?
Chairman. That's all I have.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Thank you very much, sir. Up next, Dr. Adam Duckett. He's our coroner. Yes, wait, there he is. Is that Gary?
It's Gary.
It's Gary.
Oh, that's Gary. Sorry.
Adam's his son. That's.
I just saw Duckett.
that's-
Like, oh. Okay, I guess according to him, he has no updates, so we'll move on. District Attorney Antonacci.
Good evening, everyone. So I received word last week that we are going to be receiving that 2022-2023 Criminal Justice Discover Reform Grant money that I talked about a couple months ago. So we got our award amount. It's approximately $270,000, which is not the 3 million that the Sign Council panel is getting, but I'll take whatever we get.
I were thinking we wouldn't.
Yes, we didn't get anything last year. So this is a nice surprise that it was included in the state budget this year. Our office did get a good portion of that, about 270,000. So last time we had it, which I think was about 2 years ago, we gave a percentage to probation and a percentage to 911. So we will be doing that again. We're going to be working closely with them to make sure that we probably have similar percentages, but we will be meeting with them in the next couple months to make sure that we can get that handled. I know Lynn Marinelli is working closely with my office on that. So hopefully we'll have either a resolution to accept that in the next month or two. With respect to, I've been actively recruiting for the deputy chief spot. That's my only vacancy I have right now in the office, attorney wise. and office wide. I've been actively recruiting a lot on social media, word of mouth, especially in adjoining counties. So I've interviewed, actually, I got a couple of really good resumes. I've been doing some active interviewing, and I just formally extended an offer to an individual. That individual has accepted. So hopefully they will be starting in September. This person has about 14 years prosecutorial experience in a big DA's office. So I'm excited to have this
Great.
person. I'm confident that they'll be a really good fit. So hopefully, you know, they do start come September. It's been a little bit of a battleground between DA's offices trying to make sure you have full staff. So I'm very pleased that we'll hopefully be full staffed in September. So I don't have any resolutions, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Have any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Brittany, that grant, it goes to 911 and probation, anything to the sheriff's department, or is that?
No, so it's strictly the way that the grant is worded and the way that it was worded back in 2020 is that it's primarily for our office for discovery purposes. And then because 911 did have to add operators and probation, I think had to add some resources too. They have a small percentage. So I think last time we got about 78% of that grant, 911 got 13%, and probation got 8.5%.
Thank you.
Legislator Daley.
And then anything out of that money that you don't spend just goes and offsets the local share that the county pays for the operation.
I think it goes fully to the county,
Yes.
and then I think it can be retroactive as well, but I have to take a closer look at the grant.
Legislator Nightingale, go ahead.
You might not be able to answer this, but I'm curious about what it was that attracted someone with 14 years of prosecutorial experience in a bigger area. You know, is there an asset we have that we can push forward in other interviews?
Yeah, so in speaking with this individual and just working in a bigger DA's office myself, title is a big part of it, and salary. So salary, we're still discussing a little bit, and I'm working with Diane from HR on that. But it is definitely an increase in title, which increase in different roles, type of management experience. So this person will be more in a managerial position, a training position, which we really need since we have a lot of younger attorneys right now. So I'm confident this person will be a really good fit for that.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Maybe I missed it, but how many years is this grant for? Is it just the one?
This is a year by year.
Okay.
It just depends on whether the state wants to give us funding or not. I quite frankly didn't think we'd get funding this year. So this is a pleasant surprise that we got something for the
1 year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully my understanding is there is talk that it was supposed to initially, the first time we got it, it was from the forfeiture funds from the Manhattan DA's office. They don't have those funds anymore. So this grant actually is coming from the state this time. So this is state funding this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate your time and all the work that you've been doing. Next up will be Mr. Courier from Fire EMO.
Good evening, everyone. I did submit a report. I hope you all got it. A couple quick highlights or updates. In item number 3, the kickoff for our countywide continuity of operations planning project. That meeting did take place. Department heads seemed pretty well engaged in that. I want to do a shout out to Shireen. Unfortunately, she just stepped out, but she has jumped into the fray with us and is going to be a big help to coordinate all that, help us get information out in a timely fashion, because this has to end by the end of August to recoup our grant money. And item 4, we're in the process of setting up our EMS training schedule for this fall and next spring or next winter. And as you see, we didn't have many students at this point, so we're kind of at decision mode right now. Do we do a refresher class? Because we have a lot of people that their certifications were extended twice during the pandemic because training couldn't go on, with the idea that we want to make sure we keep the people that are certified and get them refreshed versus we're not getting a lot of people for new courses. So we have a letter going out to the fire chiefs and all the EMS agencies tomorrow, asking them to poll all of their members who are EMS trained so we can get a handle on how many, one, need recertification by the end of the year, and two, biggest question, do they plan to recertify? Because the requirements have again increased somewhat, and some people are just deciding to end it. They're aging out, whatever, they don't have the time available. So those are the two big items on our hit list here, but if anyone has any questions, comments, be glad to.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a couple, Dale. There's a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I believe, at the Fire Training Center
Correct.
with the architect, right?
Correct.
Will you be updating us after that?
I will.
Okay, great.
Yep.
And second one is I want to thank you for being on the committee to help find some way when you leave.
Okay.
It was a great committee meeting the other day. Several people, certainly the chairman's on it. I think you'll find a good replacement for it.
Okay.
Thanks, Dale.
Dale, you have, there's three resolutions, but one of them I see is pulled. JP3 has been pulled, so go ahead with JP4 if you would, sir. Oh, wait a minute. That's probation. I'm sorry. I apologize, Dale.
Yeah, you scared me. I was trying to figure out what was up there. You all good?
I'm trying to read three different screens here.
I have a,
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I just want to thank Dale for his work and his proactive communication in the town of Senate. We had a gas leak. We had upwards of 200 homes without gas for about 24 hours. There was little to no communication from NICEAG. The only communication we were getting was from Dale through me to some residents. So I appreciate you on standby and then answering my 112 questions that I followed up with for all the residents that were calling.
Glad to do it.
But I appreciate your help and
Thank you.
everything went back to normal on a fairly regular basis. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dale? Thank you, Dale. I appreciate your time. Okay, now that I catch up with myself here, JD West Belair with probation.
Hi, this is John Madden, JD. I'm filling in for JD, who's on vacation.
Okay.
He submitted a report, and I'm certainly here to answer any questions you have of importance. I know we're looking for permission to fill a part-time clerk, typist, ignition, interlock device monitor, and permission to fill a probation officer position.
Okay, so JP3 has been pulled by someone. So JP4 is the part-time clerk typist title. You want to talk about that? Got anything, comments?
For me or for everybody else?
You.
Oh, okay, sorry. So it's an IID monitor service are currently provided by staff DWI. These services are being transferred to probation. An inactive part-time position with probation will be used for this position. This position is not currently budgeted. Funds for the stop DWI budget can be transferred to probation to cover the remainder of 2022. And
Okay. I'd like to, would you like to make, or I need a motion for JP4?
I'll move it because I have a couple questions.
Okay, we
Sorry,
have a
I'll second.
motion. I have a second by Andy. Any discussions?
I just to be clear, this is, you have a part-time clerical typist that wasn't budgeted, but you have it existing in your department, and that's the position you're going to be looking at filling.
correct.
And the 16,000 is in another account from the Stop DWI program that's coming into your budget? Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding, yes.
And do you have an idea of next year, what, you're going to budget a full year then next year? Have a part-time clerk to manage this?
I believe I'm not really sure I can answer that far out. That would be something JD would have to fill you in on. We're certainly gonna have to budget it for the whole year, so I'm not sure exactly how those funds are gonna come through, but my guess is it would still be transferred to us from the DWI budget one way or the other.
And I guess Lloyd might know, is there revenue that offsets this?
There is revenue that goes for those that are supervised and unsupervised for the interlock. The revenue comes back to the county. It's not a lot of revenue. It's it's 6,000 or 7,000
That,
for the year.
that might be used to offset the cost of a part-time,
Correct.
because this work you have never done before, this is new to probation?
We had a contract with Cubic Counseling
Uh-huh,
many years ago. They no longer wanted to do it. So I had proposed that Tracy Colson, who was with the Stop DWI program, incorporate that into her job and her title. She's been doing it for the last 5 years or so. And now that I've stepped down as Stop DWI coordinator, she stepped up, but it's too much. She doesn't want to take that responsibility on. So we had met and thought, since probation already does the supervised monitoring, they could also do the unsupervised.
so the 10,000 or whatever we just proposed to pay her for this does not include this work. So, right? Okay.
Any other discussion on JP4? Hearing none, all in favor?
I mean, if they can't do it without adding the staff, then I guess, yes. Right, I
I have
mean,
1, 2,
aye.
3, 4. Okay. Any opposed? I have Mr. Dennison opposed. I have at least 4 yeses and 1 no. So I would say that passes. Carry. Okay, JP 5.
This position is part of the department's regular complement of officers and is budgeted. Due to spending down benefits time, this position will not be vacant until August 12th of 22. In order to bring the candidate in and then available for training in August and September, permission is being sought to canvass and hire prior to August 12th, 2022.
Okay, I'll need a motion on JP 5. Need a second? Okay, any discussion on JP 5?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, can I ask John a question?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, John, is this to replace Angela? I see she's leaving, and was she in a supervisory position?
It is to replace Angela. She was just a regular probation officer. No supervisory probation.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Any other discussion on JP 5? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, carried. Okay, next up would be the sheriff. Brian?
Can I, before he starts,
Yep.
clarify if Jay is around for the full large meeting? I mean, JP4, it's a little more explaining, in my opinion.
We can
No,
certainly
I-
bring that up at Ways and Means, Andy, if that be all right with you?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm not completely opposed to it, but it just, I don't know. We need to know a little more about where the money's coming from.
Right,
It just seems like it's, well, let's just do this.
and why
We
the
have to.
work couldn't be absorbed.
Yeah,
Would you pass that? When does Jay come back from vacation?
He'll be back on the 18th.
And Ways and Means is,
Reason means it's on the 20th.
okay, so we will put that. Would you let Jay know that we're gonna want some more explanation on JP4? Please.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Any other discussion on JP4?
No.
Okay, Sheriff?
Good evening, everyone. In addition to my report, just a couple of quick updates. I report each month in regards to the population in our jail. I know a lot of you are interested each month in where we stand with that. Early this year, there was a neighboring sheriff's office that contracted with the feds to take some board-ins that hadn't in the past. So we lost a few to them, but today they reached out. They're getting up to capacity in their jail. So we actually took 10 feds from their facility today. So we're getting our numbers back up to where they were and towards what we budgeted for. So that's certainly good news. But they're going to be coming today and tomorrow. So we're going to increase our fed numbers there. The rest of the report is self-explanatory. Just want to add great cooperation with Lauren Walsh, our mental health director, with a number of initiatives, including the one that's listed in the report. We are working towards implementing medication-assisted treatment in the jails. You all know that we're mandated to do. It's going to take a lot of cooperation, and our planning process has been going very well. And as you see in the report, Sheriff Zerlo with Saratoga County was very gracious in welcoming us to go look at his program and take a look at their successful program, I might add. So that's moving in the right direction. Very busy with call volume. We've been extremely busy this summer. I think it's one of the busiest summers that I recall since I've been with the sheriff's office. So all of our divisions have been extremely busy. And certainly with all of the changes in the laws that we've been seeing coming down the pike here and the last couple of years, it's created a lot of extra work for our staff, and we're doing our best to address that with the current staff that we have, but it's certainly becoming very challenging with call volume and all of that. I don't have anything else to update or report on, but I obviously have a number of resolutions to go through if there's no other questions relative to the report.
Any other questions to the sheriff's report? Sheriff, go right ahead and start with JP6, sir.
So JP6, I'm asking to actually create and fill an additional deputy sheriff sergeant position. This is actually coming about. It's related to another resolution that's listed here tonight. The Moravia School District, after the Uvalde and Tops shootings, reached out. They're very interested in bringing a special patrol officer, armed special patrol officer, to their school, just like we have in Port Byron. They want to have somebody that is with our sheriff's office come to the district. So they're very interested in doing that. Their board is committed to trying to contract with us to do that, and certainly contract with the legislature if you approve that to do that. I also have a meeting with the Union Springs School District at the end of July to discuss doing something similar there. And that came about as well, just due to what's been going on out there with those two incidents and across the country. So with that has come a situation where we just do not have the supervisory staff to oversee these programs. If we're going to contract with the schools are certainly willing to pay the full cost of having the special patrol officer there, just as Port Byron does. But we just don't have the staff to continue growing with these particular initiatives to oversee these members. So we're going to need to address that. And my primary purpose for asking to create this sergeant's position is going to be to oversee our school resource officer and school special patrol officer programs. And certainly to be a liaison with our schools when it comes to school safety. I'm very concerned about everything that's been going on out there that we're seeing on the news on a daily basis. And I can share with you that since the top shooting and Uvalde shooting in our community, we've had 4 schools where we had threats of violence that we had to investigate. One that we're still looking at that concerns me, but we can't bury our head in the sand and think that these potential issues couldn't happen here just as we see them in other places. So I can't in good conscience, not address the need for putting these individuals in our schools and the need to provide proper supervision and training. And I also want to task this individual, if this position is created, with overseeing some of our training, primarily our active shooter training, that in the last few years, just due to the level of work that we've had in our call volume, it's been very difficult to provide that training that I believe we should be providing to all of our divisions yearly. That should include our road patrol division, certainly our security divisions. They should have this active shooter training, and our school resource officers should have that training each year. It's a perishable skill, as is most training. And we're getting to a point with everything that we've been tasked with doing over the last couple of years that training is kind of taken a sideline to a certain degree. And again, I can't in good conscience, not try to address that situation with everything that we're seeing going on out there, including the potential for those things to happen in our community. So, God forbid we ever have that 911 call. I want to make sure that our public safety services are equipped and prepared to address those types of incidents. I'm sure you've all seen incidents out there where, there's always Monday morning quarterbacking, but sometimes it becomes very apparent right from the early start that people were not prepared or didn't handle them appropriately. I think that our training staff and our people have done a really good job preparing for those incidents. So we hope we never have to deal with them, but I can't move forward and just start to slack in training and not be prepared for those. So that's why I'm asking for that additional position. And again, that came about primarily because of the request to add that SPO in Arabia. Fort Byron, also another resolution is looking to increase from part-time hours to full-time hours. And I think that we may or may not have another request for another special patrol officer at another school. So I'm asking for an investment in school safety and our school resource officer and SPO program. And that's why I'm coming forward looking for a position. I've tried very hard not to create new positions and grow our sheriff's office over the last 3.5 years as I've been sheriff, but we're just getting to a point where we are maxed out as far as how much more we can take on, and our people just, they can't absorb this and do this on top of everything else we've been tasked with doing over the last couple of years.
Okay, I'll need a motion for JP 6.
Nightingale, move it.
I need a second. Seconded by Trish. Any discussion? Go ahead, Kelly.
I certainly understand what you're talking about, and I do recall, and I asked Amanda to pull it. I think I would be asking, because this is a new position. Obviously, you don't need money in your 2022 budget because you must have vacancies and enough in the salary line to cover it. But next year, this is a 61,000 plus 12% brand new position that will be there. I don't know what percentage of time this particular position will spend directly overseeing the SPO and SRO program and the training of those officers. But, we did pass a resolution, and I know the past is the past, in 2019, supporting the commitment of the county to the sheriff's department in an effort to facilitate the implementation of an SRO SPO program for the school districts within Cayuga County. But there was also a resolve that the county, in so supporting, intends that costs incurred by the county, including legacy costs, may result from the sheriff's providing personnel shall be borne by the individual school districts. So I guess what I'm asking is, I don't think it would be inappropriate when you renew some of these contracts that whatever percentage of time this particular person will be spending in those school districts, that perhaps you would consider adding that to the contracts you have with the school. Because then the county is not footing the total bill for this, but the school districts will also be sharing and bringing some revenue in. I don't think that would be inappropriate to ask. And especially if more schools are going to be asking to do this, then, a good portion of this, whatever percentage of this position is directly related to the SRO program and the supervision and training, if you could consider adding that into the amended agreements, I think this is a way for the schools to share in some of those costs.
I think the schools would certainly be willing to look at that and address that. I don't think that we could cover the cost of the whole position.
Right, because
I can't give you a percentage of time that they would be involved in providing that supervision for the individual districts, but I can tell you that it wouldn't be 100% of the time. But I do think that is reasonable to look at something like that and potentially look at a percentage, which, I don't know if additional schools will ask, moving forward. If that happened, that could certainly lower the percentage. I think that's fair to ask them to cover some of that if we're negotiating a contractor or doing that. I also know I've talked with our budget director. I talked to Linda and Ellie about the potential for some shared services money that we might be able to look to recoup if we create this position. Not prepared to speak to that tonight. I think we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that at Ways and Means. But I'm not opposed, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad idea, but I can stand here and tell you that I can't recoup 100% of the cost of this.
No, I'm sure you can, because you're going to have them do other duties, but whatever percent you find out that they're doing, directly related to that program, then, if you would keep that in mind as you renegotiate those agreements with the schools. Because the SRO or the SPO, Special Patrol Officer, it's an hourly rate, non-bargaining employee that they're picking the total tab up for the
Correct.
School districts.
Correct.
Okay.
We're not making any investment in the special patrol officer.
Any other discussions on JP 6? Mr. Dennison.
So what do we have? 3 schools now that have
Right now, we have a full-time deputy at Cayuga. We have a special patrol officer in the Port Byron School District that we're looking to convert to a full-time position from a part-time. And we have Moravia, who is ready to move forward if we are able to agree to move forward. And the Union Springs School District wants me to come and discuss this with the board. They haven't made any decision or really looked at this yet, but I think that their board is very interested, given, you know, what we've seen.
Well, this position isn't actually going to be in a school. They're just,
Supervised.
They would supervise all of those positions from our public safety building or from our sheriff's office. So they would certainly visit those locations, but they wouldn't be assigned or located within a school. But I would also task that individual with taking care of providing training for not only the members in the schools, but also the members on our road patrol division and special patrol officers in our courts and here in the county office building.
where does that training come from now?
Right. Well, up until, you know, recently, we had utilized our staff internally to provide some of that training. We haven't provided the training to our court security and special patrol officers in a number of years, just due to, you know, having the difficulty getting the time to do that. We just recently promoted Lieutenant Glenn Dudley into the lieutenant's position. He was our primary trainer, but we lost a lot of senior staff over the last couple of years. So now, you know, we have a void where we don't have somebody in that training role, but we also don't have the free time with our existing supervisors to pick up where he left off with all of the additional things that we've taken on recently. So that's why it's created that void, and we need to fill that void to take care of the training. But up until this point, it's generally been Glenn Dudley that had taken care of that training.
Any other discussions on JP6? Mr. Vasile.
Sure, the question. First, thank you for your support for the holiday weekend up in Fairhaven. Appreciate that. Are there other costs with these, even these SPO officers that are above and beyond just their hourly rate? Like, you know, we purchase tasers and we purchase vests, and how does that get?
The contracts designate, at least the contract we have for Byron, the proposed contract with Moravia, would basically put the cost to the school district for those items. So
Okay.
we're not paying for the equipment. They're paying for the equipment. They are not providing a car. But with the sergeant's position, that would ultimately, and that reminds you, that would ultimately result in the purchase of an additional car down the road. That's not something we would need immediately, but that individual would need a car. So there would be an additional expense. I didn't write into that resolution. That's something that certainly would have to be considered as this position is considered.
Thank you.
Ms. Nightingale.
Sheriff, I wondered how this impacts your current staffing when you move our road patrol officers into SPO positions at a time when we've heard that you're having trouble, you know, recruiting. What are your plans for that? How do things look for you in terms of staffing around these changes?
Our main challenges are in the jail, and in the road right now, we're down one position. We have one individual in the academy and two that are field training. We have one vacant position currently in the road patrol division. We do have a sergeant, Sergeant Ross, is going to be retiring. He oversees our operations here at the court and at the office building in our civil division. He's going to be retiring in August, so that's going to create an open position there. So we'll be down two positions, but we can manage this on the road patrol side of things. It's the jail that we're really struggling with. We're still down 9 positions in the jail.
To clarify though, the reason you have the special patrol officer is so you don't have to take a deputy off the road for these schools. This is a separate, you only have one deputy in a school, that's BOCES. The rest of these are these hourly rate employees.
BOCES contracts with us and pays for the entire salary
Of
and
the
cost of the full-time deputy sheriff.
Yes, right.
The special patrol officer is much more cost effective for the schools to hire us to put that individual in school, because it's much cheaper to put a retired member in doing this job.
And they
rather
don't
than a
work
full-time
summers and they work school hours, right?
Correct. That would be how we would contract with Moravia and how Port Byron is looking to move for full-time.
Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Chairman.
Sheriff, do you see the other county schools following suit on this? Do you think all the other ones will reach out?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that Weedsport already has a full-time police officer there. I believe Cato has 2 security officers that are hired under their umbrella, as well as I think Southern Cayuga has the same arrangement. I haven't heard anything from them. I don't know if they could potentially reach out at some point, but if we continue to see what we've seen across the country and address, school threats that we've seen here locally as well as beyond, I wouldn't be surprised if they do reach out, but they may look to, do something different. I don't know, but it's my opinion that every school should have an armed, at least special patrol officer or deputy in it today.
Thank you. I agree 100% with you.
And I wouldn't come to you and ask you for an extra position. I know the strain on the budget. I get it. The last thing I want to do is go back to the taxpayer, given everything that we're dealing with today, and say, we need to look for additional revenue to fill a position. I wouldn't come to you if I didn't fully believe 100% that we need this position that does impact public safety. And unfortunately, looking with everything that keeps coming down the pike, with changes in the law, with what's going on with society, what's going on with mental health in our community, I'm afraid that this is something that may not potentially stop here. Just, coming to you and telling you when it comes to public safety in our community, we have to make this investment in our schools. And I'm certainly willing to go back to the schools and look for some help paying for this position. But I can tell you and reassure you, I would not come to you if we absolutely did not need this position and it didn't impact safety in our community. I've thought long and hard about this, but given everything that's going on and the threats that we've seen here in recent months, we absolutely have got to take school safety seriously in making it, make this investment in school safety.
One quick
Go ahead, Andy.
The car part, when you mentioned that, if this person's not gonna be actual road patrol, why would they need a car?
They would certainly be responding to the school districts to, supervise and overseeing training and that type of thing, but they would be a police officer. There would be a sergeant, a police officer who could certainly respond to incidents in between if they were between, the school and the public safety building. So I would feel strongly that if we're going to make this commitment to put this position in place, that we would want to make sure that this individual could also address emergencies and provide additional supervision for the road patrol division if somebody was off, or if another sergeant took a night off and maybe they fill a shift to cover that potential shift, we would have the ability to utilize them in that capacity. But I think if we're going to make that investment, in my opinion, we would want to make sure that we could utilize them to their fullest potential if we needed to do that. And if they're going to be providing active shooter and overseeing our school safety programs, I would want them equipped with all the same equipment that everybody has. I would want them to have, the rifle and the equipment that all of our members carry to address those potential incidents. If we get that, we get that 911 call, I want that individual to be able to respond to that as well.
I was just wondering if you've seen any funding, like federal funding or state funding for these types of programs to get them started or expanded. For school safety is obviously a very important hot topic.
I haven't yet. We might see that down the road here. I haven't seen that yet, but I do keep pretty close tabs on, Department of Justice funding and grant opportunities that come down the pike. I haven't seen anything. The undersheriff's here, I don't know if you've seen anything like that. I haven't seen.
Not for us, the schools do have safety grants that they can use their money to pay for this. Some of the schools get those grants and they use that money to reimburse us.
Legislator Shea.
Thank you, Sheriff. I agree with you. School safety is paramount. What I'm wondering is on the side of prevention, and would one of these officers or deputies that you're adding have the ability to go assess schools and find weaknesses where they could be breached and try to alleviate that breach and make the schools safer. So, we wouldn't always have tragedies that we've had.
I think that's absolutely something that we could utilize this position for. And I think if the primary focus is on schools and our resource officer programs, that school safety, whether it be prevention, whether helping hardening schools, whether helping identify, potential threats and being able to address those, that would be their primary focus, school safety on top of the training, but we could certainly utilize that position. And along those lines, I wanted to just briefly mention one of the initiatives that Lauren Walsh and I are working on is developing a threat assessment and management team to deal with threats, whether they're threats within the school or maybe something outside the school in our community. But, if somebody's got a mental health issue or, they're, for whatever reason, planning to do something or making threats, we're forming this team so that we can work collaboratively from a law enforcement front, from a mental health front. And we're also, we brought Ryan Hartwell into the loop from Cayuga Onondaga BOCES to get our schools involved in this, but bring a team of dedicated people that are just dedicated to dealing with these potential issues. If a threat's made or something happens, especially within our schools, this team comes together, they assess it. They determine, is there credibility to it? They try to make the situation safe immediately and then continue to offer, mental health services and law enforcement follow-up down the road. We've worked in silos predominantly over the years. Everybody's kind of done their own thing, but I see a lot of benefit in us coming together and working collaboratively on this. But I also see this particular position working very closely with this threat assessment and management team that we're currently coordinating. And I'm not sure if Sheriff Gould, wants to add anything relative to a recent executive order, but you may or may not know that the governor recently issued Executive Order 18, which requires all counties to develop a plan to address terrorism, domestic extremists, domestic terrorism. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're already working on to develop this team. And, we have to have this plan developed by the end of the year, but that's something that we're working on. And I see this particular position, if created, working very closely with this team to address, any types of threats that we have within our school districts. But since the top shooting, we've had four kids who have talked about shooting up a school or doing that in our own community. So we're not immune to these things. And, how credible are they? Some to me look, like they may not be at all. One gives me a little bit of cause for concern. But again, that's the primary reason I come and stand here, because God forbid, if we ever have a situation in our community, being the sheriff of Cayuga County, I want to know that I've done everything I can to make sure that we prevented that or thwarted that. So that's why I'm here. So.
Legislator.
And Sheriff,
Thank you.
the individual addressed in JP6, but then while they may be the supervising piece for currently what is Port Byron now, potentially Moravia and potentially Union Springs, they would have that access to all county schools, for instance, to, as Legislator Shea suggested, assessment. So we would have, all our county schools would have some kind of access to assistance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As part of development of our threat assessment and management team, staff from mental health and I have met with our school superintendents twice. Our local school superintendents, they meet once a month at BOCES, and we've met with them twice, and we've discussed school safety and threats and these types of things. They are very receptive to partnering with us on these initiatives. And I feel 100% confident that they would absolutely take advantage of partnering with us to coordinate, our activities when it came to school safety and trying to make sure we're doing everything we can to prevent these types of incidents and, prevent violence in our district. So, but absolutely, to answer your question, they would.
Last one.
Chairman?
Sheriff. The SPOs, they don't have, they drive their own cars to the schools. So the only car you would need if this is passed is the sheriff's car.
It would
Or the
be
sergeant's car.
correct. It would be for the road patrol sergeant. The special patrol officers only have authority under the general municipal law in the area that they work. So if they work for a school district, only within that school district, the buildings and grounds, do they have law enforcement authority. So giving them any type of car, even if the school was to pay for that, wouldn't make sense because they have no authority once they leave the grounds.
Thank you.
Legislator.
I just have a quick question. If you have found any information in, I guess, anything that's being shared about the ratio between the student population and an SRO, you're talking about one SRO for like Fort Byron, is that for the entire district? So my problem is that, for me sitting here, I'm not on this committee, but again, this is an example of, you're doing business differently now. And the cost of doing this business, the cost of doing business now differently is just going to increase. It's just a fact. It's not the way that it was before. We all have a sort of a new normal we need to latch onto and understand and accept and move forward. I worry about people will say, why do you only have one for this whole district? You know, if something can happen, you know, that's going to be what everyone will be asking of you and of us. So I'm just curious as if, you know, if you've come up with any of that information about, you know, what the ratio could possibly be, or what are you know, because I'd like to think about the next, you know, in 3 years or in 5 years, potentially, what could this really be? And that does change your whole department. I mean, so I think we should just, I'm glad we're having the conversation.
Sure.
Of
I
course,
don't
as a
have a-
teacher and a parent, but yeah, for sure.
I don't have that actual ratio, but I can tell you, I know, you know, some might think, okay, there's one special patrol officer there. What can they do in a situation? I think it goes much beyond that. I think there's the prevention aspects. I think if people know there's an armed individual in the school, they're potentially less apt to, you know, target that location. Certainly they can address a threat if something happens, but they are one person. But I think the bigger benefit is the relationships that they build, not only with staff, but with students. This individual knows the students. These SPOs know everybody. They know when somebody's struggling. They know when this particular individual may be a real threat. They know the parents, where our deputies might respond to that location, but they don't really know anything about the situation. I think the relationships they build are key. And not just when it comes to school safety and these types of threats, but, you know, your run-of-the-mill complaints that we receive every day, you know, whether it's a sex abuse investigation or it's abuse at home or any of those things, they're dealing with those issues every day. They have those relationships, the kids trust them, you know, they're going to go to them with information. They're going to go to them and say, hey, you know, so-and-so is being abused at home, or so-and-so just made a threat. And I mean, they're more apt to go to that individual that they know that's embedded in their school than they are to somebody, you know, out on the street that they don't know. I think there's many, many benefits to having these positions in our schools.
Absolutely.
Okay, anyone else have any questions about JP6 for the sheriff? I want to thank everybody for the great questions and discussion. And I move all in favor for the JP6.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP7, sir.
JP7, this is just amending our current contract with the Port Byron School District to amend the position from a part-time position to a full-time position. So they're looking to have him full-time, meaning following the school calendar. I have discussed with Lynn Marinelli some of the impacts of changing this to a full-time position, but at the end of the day, the school would still be picking up any costs that would be associated with this. And being that this is a retired individual, there wouldn't be any retirement or legacy costs down the road. But if there is some type of benefit that we have to offer, the school would be responsible for covering the cost of that. So there's no increase to the cost of the county. Move it.
I have a motion on JP7. I need a second.
Second it.
Seconded by Daley. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP8.
JP8, I did bring a similar resolution out. It was last month or the month before. We do have one additional, actually the special patrol officer that is in the Port Byron district is very interested in working in our navigation division. We are having some challenges trying to fill those spots. We just don't have the bodies to do that, but he's very interested in doing that if we can add that seasonal position. If you recall, at the beginning of the year, I did ask for approval to add the navigation assistance, but we didn't look for the actual the personnel that would serve in this particular position. But since that time, we've had two very qualified individuals come forward that were interested in working the navigation patrol. And this is an individual that we can utilize for at least two more, or at least probably a month and a half. But I would like to get him trained if possible and put him out there to fill some of those open slots. And this is something that is budgeted and paid for. 50% of it is paid for by the state and already budgeted.
Need a motion for JP8?
Move it.
I have a motion. I need a second. I'll second it.
I just had one question. This is a second deputy, sort of. We did the seasonal ones, then you did one deputy because you would need law enforcement. This person will also be in that category and fill in for each other, or?
Correct, would serve as a deputy out there along with a navigation assistant or potentially.
So this is the
Another
second
deputy.
seasonal deputy that might come forward to man the Marine.
Correct, just like with every division, we've had a hard time filling spots in this particular division, and he would fill a spot where we have a need.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Sheriff, how many boats are we still have 5 boats or 4 boats now? And what do they do to be rotated out?
We have 4 boats that they're still the same boats that you had under your administration. I don't know if that answers your question.
So they're pretty old.
They are. We're doing everything we can to, we're limping them along, but I'm trying to look for some potential funding down the road to help cover some of the costs if we have to purchase a boat. I don't think that we need to purchase 3 or 4 new boats, but I think, sometime in the future here, we need to look at trying to at least have one dependable boat in case we have an emergency or some issue that we need to deal with out there. But right now, our boats are serving the purpose. We are, doing the best we can to maintain them and get as much life out of them as we can, but they're getting pretty old.
Thank you.
Any other discussions on JP8? Ms. Nightingale.
Just very quickly, are boats as difficult to get as vehicles are? So if you needed one, are you going to wait a year after we approve?
Good question.
Just in terms of when you should time the request.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Mr. Basile.
I think I can help with that. I think it is almost the same. If they blow a motor on one of those boats, it's 8 months to 12 months to get a new motor. It's the Yamaha, Suzuki, whatever's on the back of them, a Honda. They're not easily come by.
We did replace a motor in one last year. Some of you may remember approving that in our budget. We did replace a motor. The state picked up half the cost. We'll continue to do what we can like that to keep moving our boats, limping them along. I don't see an immediate need to replace them, but it is something thinking long-term that we will have to down the road, but there's not an immediate need to do that.
Mr. Seal again.
Do they get stored inside?
We store them outside. You mean in the winter?
In the winter.
Yeah, they're stored outside.
So
We get snowed on?
Yeah, I think they're
winterized. They're winterized.
they're winterized and stuff, but everyone thinks storing something like that outside, well, it's a boat, it gets wet, but it cuts the lifetime in half if you store them outside. Versus even if it's not in a controlled environment, just in a dry building. Just an FYI.
Any other discussions on JP8? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP9.
JP9 is we have a number of police agencies that have used our range for years. And I found that a couple of them had signed memorandums of agreement with us covering their usage. And I found that some of them didn't. So you've approved them in the past for agencies, but I just want to make sure that certainly any agency using our range, that we're covering our liability and that we have a signed MOU with them. So this just covers a few agencies that I'm not sure if they're listed in the resolution. I don't have it right in front of me, but it just covers some additional agencies that we do not currently have MOUs for that have used our range for quite some time. Move it.
I have a motion. I need a second. Legislator Kerr for the second. Any discussions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. JP 10.
10 is the contract with the Moravia School District for the full-time SPO, adding that position to the school with all costs being borne by the school district.
Need a motion?
Move it.
Need a second?
Nightingale, second.
Second, any discussions?
I just have a curious question. If you're upping the hours for Port Byron and you're adding a brand new SPO, shouldn't the resolution add additional money and offsetting revenue so that you'll have enough money in the lines to be able to do this? I mean, it would be budget neutral because you book the revenue as well as the expense, but how do you propose to increase the hours and add a new position and have enough money in the line to do it without.
So I guess we probably could do that and should do that. We do bill them monthly
Right. I
for the
mean,
services, so we would immediately start billing them for full-time hours when we got to that point.
it's just a matter of having enough money in your budget lines, and your revenue line. I mean, I don't know, maybe you could check before Ways and Means. It just seems
I can
odd.
check with Lynn, and if we need to adjust that, you
Yeah.
know, just to clean that up, we can do that, but
Right, that was my only question. How would you have enough money to add all this in unexpected?
Any other discussions on JP? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Lastly, sir, JP 11.
JP 11 deals with our court security officers. As you know, we're reimbursed by the state of New York 100% for their salaries. Our representative reached out to me and indicated that they wanted to give $1 an hour raise to the special patrol officers across the street at the courthouse, effective July 1st. So this resolution addresses that request to increase their salary, and they will be reimbursing us for that increase. Move it.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Any other comments, questions for the sheriff? Oh, we have you.
Just one with the, what is it called, the shooting range? Is that something that a shared services could be applied for? At all, if there's not an existing formal contract between?
They don't pay for the use of it, so I'm not sure what we could do with that, but they just basically utilize the range when we're not utilizing it. For a number of years, the State Department of Corrections used it until they built their new one. They would just use it, and we would just stagger times that we did, but we don't receive any income from those agencies utilizing the range. It's just something that we let the Auburn Police Department use it because we partner with them on a lot of initiatives, but we don't charge them for the use of it, just as we don't with the other agencies.
I was just wondering if they didn't have access to that, would they have to build their own? Could that cost be?
Maybe it's certainly something we could talk to Lynn about and see if there's some potential there to look at that. I don't know the answer to that. It's a good thought, certainly. I will talk to Lynn about that. Maybe we can bring that back to Ways and Means.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions come before this committee? If not, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Any second? All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, 5 minutes.
Hans, you're on double.
Hans, 3 minutes.
This month. You're on
Hey,
double duty
how you
this
doing?
month. You got this and Ways.
Have I given you one of ours?
Where's Chris? Where's Chris?
Questions?
No, he just got it.
That's up to you.
Letting everyone know I've unmuted Chambers now.
But then when I got the speaker, I was like, something's wrong. Yeah, that's not.
I was your.
We're beginning to have a lot of cases like. But they can, which is the.
I got a bunch of Close to carrying in your pocket. There you go. What do you got? You know, those things rear their ugly heads. Way to go, sir.
Yeah,
Do you, are you able
Yes, you can. I've been the same way.
Yes, sir.
It gets tough because I need to do all these things.
Just a reminder, we are live. Our lights here.
Mark.
Yes, ma'am. Live. Yeah, we're on.
I might go to London. But that's coming up on the 21st.
Next
I'm gonna let it know.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't be like, I almost sat down there. Same age almost, you know.
Well, I hope you're a lot more senile than he is, or, yeah.
Everybody's ready? The meeting, please come to order. Everybody's here, should be on the committee, except Chris Petras, who is excused. So we'll go to minutes. Need a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. We'll go to appointments next. Veterans Board, Mike Quill, believe it's the mayor, right? That Mike Quill? Okay. 86 Lansing Street, term from 7/1/22 to 6/30/24. Motion,
I'll move it.
Nightingale,
second. Who seconded?
Nightingale.
Okay, first and second, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried again. Okay, next we have something that isn't on the agenda, but it was asked at the last minute and Ms. Nallenbeck, please. Representing Cayuga County Community College.
Thank you. Thank you so much for letting us go first. And my name is Maureen Ellenbeck. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the college, July 29th. And I did bring Kelly Albrecht, who's
First, you know. Just go to the budget. Okay. So the first resolution is asking the county to approve our 22-23 budget. Our board on June 30th did approve our budget for the upcoming year. And the amount is $25,950,000. And we are asking for a slight increase in the county contribution of 1.5%, which amounts to about $46,000. The amount that you have given us is about 3.1 million in the past. Can we go to the next page? I think we just provided a little context for you in terms of our budget. You can see the last 5-year budget for the college. We have actually decreased our budget over the last 5 years, and we are trying to strategically bring it down as our enrollment has been decreasing. And of course, with the COVID years, it went down significantly in the last couple years. In the meantime, though, we have in the last 2 years, we have received some CARES funds. You might call them something different, but for us, they're the higher ed relief funds. So we have tried to keep the tuition costs down for our students in the last couple of years, and we're happy to say that there is a 0% increase in tuition for this year. So what we're asking you in the resolution is for a 1.5% increase in the contribution that you at the county make as our sponsor, and the amount would be $3.122340 million. So I think that was it for the presentation. And I would, take any questions that you might have. And if I can't answer them, I would make sure that Dr. Grant would answer them in the next meeting.
What's the population doing?
I'm sorry.
College population or enrollment?
Students, the enrollment has been going down traditionally, but the COVID pandemic really hurt colleges, all the community colleges, and really colleges across the country. It's one of the reasons that the federal government provided relief in the 20 years, spring of 20, from 20 to fall to the next spring. We actually lost about 20% of our students. The budget this year's budget, the 21-22 budget, is 1,600 full-time equivalents, which amounts to a lot more students than that. It's like 3,000 students, but we make them full-time equivalents, and that's how we get funded at the state level. And this year in the budget, we are budgeting 1,530, so down from 1,600. We have made our budget enrollment in 21-22. We actually have exceeded it, so that is a good thing. We have started some new programs. As you know, you've had some involvement with a culinary program. So that is going well. We also have a new program in Fulton with advanced manufacturing that went online in January, this past January. And some of our health science programs are new. So we are hoping that some of those programs give us a bump in enrollment. But it is a struggle right now because we are finding that education is really changing. There's a lot of competition. We used to have a market on the online. We got into online courses fairly early, in the late 90s, actually. So we kind of had a niche there. And now, of course, with the pandemic, everybody had to go online. So now we have competition there. So, we're hoping with some of our new programs that we attract some new students, and that students are deciding now that they're going to go back to school. I think for a couple of years they were kind of in a holding pattern. They weren't necessarily working and they weren't going to school. We're not sure what they were doing, but hopefully this year will bring good things. But we are budgeting to be down 70 FTE.
Okay, Maria.
Is the school policy going to maintain the requirement for a COVID shot to enter the building and to be on site to learn?
For the students, I don't know. I don't know the answers to that yet because we follow SUNY policies, the State University of New York, and I don't believe the policies are out for the fall yet. So we don't know exactly what they will be. We have reduced our testing quite a bit. I mean, if you come to Cayuga, you know that we are pretty
pretty strict there. We've kind of been ahead of the curve with the pandemic and a lot of rules, and we tested for a long, long time. And we do require vaccinations for students, and it's about 90% of the personnel are vaccinated. But we have to follow SUNY regulations, and we don't know what they're going to be yet for the fall. So at this point, you can't be more lax than what the regulations passing down are. We can't. We have seen them somewhat come down, in terms of testing requirements. SUNY is reacting to the environment around it. So we don't expect that it'll be, more stringent, of course, but we don't know yet.
Jim?
Thank you, Hon. Do you have a ratio of employment to students? Like how many people the system employs versus the number of students that are attending?
Are you talking about when students graduate or?
No, when you have attendance for the year, for the fall semester, let's say there's 1,500 students, how many people does that college employ? What's the ratio?
The college has about 200 full-time employees. It's down quite a bit. And that's part of the reason our budget's gone down. It's pretty much every time we have a vacancy, we look as to whether or not we have to fill it. So we have about 200 full-time employees. Of course, we do employ students. Probably, I'm not going to swear to a number of part-time employees. I would say probably 200 to 300 part-time employees. But that does include students because we have work study and college students too. So we have about 50 full-time faculty right now.
Any other questions? If not, I guess we'll proceed to the motion. If somebody will make it.
I'll move it.
Second,
I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion? Anybody, any questions? Video?
I would have to vote no to supporting a budget increase if we are isolating students who choose to not vaccinate to attend. And I'm hoping that if SUNY hears this message, they may reconsider their mandates.
Anybody else? Any questions or comments? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
Anyone opposed? Okay, carried.
Mr. Chairman, there's another resolution, the approval of the contract with ESP.
Yes, our Educational Support Professional Group. These are most of our clerical people. We don't really have a formal presentation on this. I'll provide a little bit of background to the contract. It's a 2-year contract. It was after successful negotiations and very fairly quick negotiations. We are providing for raises in the amount of $1,350 flat in the first year. I'm sorry, $1,300 in the first year. Yes, that's what I said, and $1,350 in the second year. There's 16 employees at the college that are covered by this agreement. It amounts to about a 3% agreement. These are some of the lower paid people at the college. And if you have any more questions, I'd be happy to entertain.
We'll go on to a motion if there is one.
I'll move it.
Is that second?
A second.
Okay. We'll go on to discussion. Any questions? Comments? Otherwise, all those in favor, excuse me, Jim?
I'm sorry, thank you. So what do these employees do? What
These are mostly our clerical people.
Okay.
Any further comments? Anybody? If not, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed, carried. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I'm done. Thank you so much for listening
Mr. Chairman?
tonight.
Thank you.
I just wanted to congratulate you on your retirement. It's
Thank
been a
you so
pleasure
much.
working with you for a lot of years.
You
So
too. Thank you so
congratulations.
much. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
Thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to Board of Elections, Peter Lacy's here.
Yeah, we just really wanted to update, after we did our monthly report. We were, at the tail end of the report, we mentioned that we were trying to find a way to acquire, additional printers so that we could go to countywide, ballot on demand. And we have gotten the news that we've, got a source for the 30 additional printers that we would need in order to do that. So if they arrive before the August primary, we'll be using them then. There shouldn't be a problem with them getting here for November, and that would give us enough printers to be able to do it countywide. So we would have a considerably lower printing bill, which is the good news. Bad news is that we did not budget for 2 primaries. So there is an additional primary that will have to be funded. The part of the primary that is the county responsibility is the 9 days of early voting. We will not be staffed up to the number that we had for the recently passed primary. The staff cost for the primary in June was about $20,000. The one in August is a smaller primary. It's only the Republican and conservative parties that have primaries, so there'll be fewer turnout. There'll also be fewer people for early voting. But we have no option as far as early voting is concerned. We have to have 9 days of early voting, and the hours are set by state law. It's the same all across the state. There have been a lot of articles in various counties, a lot of them around the Capital District and the Hudson Valley. They had very low turnout for early voting. It was a statewide low turnout. We were one of the higher percentage turnouts, but it was still low. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of newspaper coverage of the cost per voter for early voting. And it may well be that some of your legislative organizations will be considering some changes in the early voting laws. Give us some flexibility. We would appreciate having some flexibility to be able, we've got 3 voting locations for early voting. We would probably have the same amount of turnout and be able to provide coverage around the county if we could move the locations. If we could have 3 days in the north, 3 days in the south, 3 days in the city, and we would we'd have this, the opportunity for people to have more chance to vote. But for the presidential, you'd have to go to 9 days around the county. But these local primaries, we had a per voter cost of over $30 per person for the recent primary. About I don't know, the numbers were in the report. It was over 3,000 people voted, but it's a considerable expense for 9 days to pay for the people to sit there. The general election in November, we split the cost to the towns. We send it back and charge it back to the towns. But the early voting is totally county expense. There's no way to proportion it out to the towns. So it's a total county expense. So we're going to be scrambling to come up with the money. We may save enough in the printing costs to cover the cost of the early voting staff, but we really don't know yet. So just a heads up on the second primary. The other thing is that if you get any opportunity to contact any of your state organizations, or especially the Association of Counties, be on the lookout for an opportunity to put in a word for giving the local counties some flexibility depending on the size of the counties. for the number of days or flexibility in the hours. A couple of counties have got a traveling van that they use for early voting. Some of them have gone to just one location. Cheryl and I have been, from the very beginning, really advocated for the 3 locations because of the layout of our county. When it's 90 miles from the north to the south, having one voting location in the city of Auburn is not very practical, even though it is, pretty much in the middle. But the inconvenience to the people on both ends of the county is obvious. So the 3 locations increase our cost. And that's about it. That's all we really wanted to update you on.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Was that estimated, I'll say that because maybe you don't, that $30 per person, that was strictly for the early voting, or is that?
That's early voting. That's actually more than 30.
And how does that compare to people that vote on the day we're supposed to vote? Or
It's
on a
usually,
voting day?
it's a general election where it's usually in the $3 to $3.50 range. It's like 10 times as much.
So we're supporting people by $28 because they can't figure out the day. Okay, thank you.
The turnout's so low, it's making it so much more expensive.
Yeah,
to
it's the
cover it.
turnout, and you can't predict, assumedly the turnout for the general election will be higher. I would think that the turnout in August for the smaller primary will be lower. And it's, all of those numbers are much lower than the presidential year. Local election years, we just set up in the towns that have primaries. So it's not as expensive.
Right.
But when you have countywide offices, like this year, we have all countywide primaries. We've got a countywide congressional race in August. We had countywide governor in June. So all of the places had to be open.
Katie, would you and Cheryl consider coming up with a list of changes that you'd like to see made that we could endorse as a body and pass on?
Actually, we can give you some copies of some proposals that were made by the Commissioners Association that didn't go anyplace this year with the legislature. But
We can try.
I think with the newspaper coverage that some of the turnout numbers have gotten, that there's likely to be more interest in it.
I think the numbers are $30. We get some attention. So.
Yeah.
Lydia?
Thank you. Hi, Katie. Good to see you. Who drives down the mandates, the numbers of the 9 days and so on?
The original, most of the lobbying in Albany at the time when they came up with early voting was, ours is actually less than most states. Most of the states that have had early voting have had it much longer than we have. We didn't start until 2018. And most of the states that have it have 2 weeks. Larger state, Texas has a month. Ohio has a month. It's different in all the states. They started out with it was mainly the League of Women Voters and local government groups that were arguing for having early voting. And the idea was to have 2 weekends, was how they got to the 9 days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? I guess not. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
You're welcome.
Sheila's on the screen. Sheila?
Yep, I'm here, Hans.
Okay.
So we're trying to update all the policies. So there's quite a few policies on the agenda for tonight. I don't know if anybody has any questions on any of them. Some of them are just updating formatting. Some of them are changing The main thing was changing county administrator to the chair and or designee. But if you have any questions, some of them come out of my department, some are legislative ones, which are still going to come out of my department, and some are from different departments. Does anyone have any questions?
We'll do it. Anybody?
Hi Sheila, this is Trish Kerr. I just had a question on the time reporting policy, and is that
Nope.
changing?
That's new.
Okay, and then is that for people that, do our employees currently punch the clock, or how does that work?
No, everybody has a timesheet pretty much. Mary Beth, are you want to explain that one?
Yes, I'm on. There are, most of the people have a timesheet. There are a couple of departments that have a time clock. So everybody is a little bit different. But ultimately, we need an official record from the employee that's kind of signed off by the employee and approved by the department head, so that when we get audited either by the state or by our external auditors or whoever, that we can prove why we paid someone what we paid them. And so we need, the policy basically will enforce having everyone turn in a timesheet to substantiate what we're paying.
Okay, and the ones that are punching the clock currently, will they move to a different system then, I guess, is my question? Or will
No,
they keep-
we're really not changing the system. They're still gonna use their time clock. It's just a matter of kind of establishing the requirement to submit a timesheet. So for example, myself, I do a timesheet. Historically, that wasn't approved by anyone. So now we're kind of establishing that level of approval and having it go to the chair and having a more official record. Most departments have consistently been either using a time clock or a timesheet and having the department head sign off on it. But really more formalizing for department heads to have a structure as well and something official.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I guess we'll have to tackle them. I guess we'll do it one at a time. It's all different. So is there a motion for GO4?
Yep.
Anybody for a second?
A second.
All right. Okay, any further discussion on, or any discussion on GO4? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Carried. GO5, time recording policy. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Okay, any further discussion?
I appreciated the clarity that this is one I did have a question on that is new. And then it always surprises me that we don't have policy for this, so I'm happy that there's one in place.
Okay, not hearing any further discussion. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, GO6, amending the county emergency closing policy. Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Heidi second, okay. GO6, any further discussion?
We'll take a vote on it. We'll have to vote on it. GO5.
Oh,
Or, I'm sorry,
GO5?
GO6, we have to vote on.
Didn't we do GO5?
We did a motion and a second on GO6.
That's where we're at.
Okay. Jump the gun? Or-
GO6, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Did I jump that gun?
You're confusing me.
I'm so sorry. I'm not, it's not my intention.
Okay. So GO6,
COVID's name.
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? If not, carried. GO7, amending Cayuga County vehicle policy. Motion,
So move.
is there a second?
A second?
Okay, any further discussion? Jim? Thank you. On the vehicle policy, it's a Cayuga County vehicle policy. Is that For this
That's correct.
building, you know, there's all these departments that have vehicles.
It's for the whole county.
It's for the whole, okay.
Any further questions? If not, all those in favor of GO7? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried again. GO8, amending the county employees' absences necessitated by adverse weather conditions policy. GO8, is there a motion? Anybody?
I'll move it.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, okay. GO8, further discussion? Not all those in favor, aye?
Oh, there was a discussion here.
Thank you, Hans. Just a quick question on who determines the necessity? Is it in the policy? I apologize for asking this
Yes, it is.
question.
Yeah,
It's in the
the
policy.
very first paragraph.
Okay, and how that's determined?
Yes.
Okay, I'll have to
We
read
have
that.
adverse weather conditions.
Hmm?
We have adverse.
Well, everybody's opinion of adverse, it could have been raining out, I don't know. So I'm gonna read that.
Okay.
Thank you, Hans.
Back to GO8, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Nobody opposed, carried. GO9, amending the county policy, naming of county property. Is there a motion?
Nightingale, move it.
Is there a second?
Second, Amy.
Okay, GO9, further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed, carried. GO10, amending the Cayuga County Records Management Policy. Is there a motion?
Move it.
Second? Trish? Okay, GO10. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried also. GO11, amending the policy on sale and disposition of real property owned by Cayuga County. Motion? Anybody?
Nightingale, move it.
Please? No motion?
Nightingale, move it.
I'd help you out, but I'm
Got a
not.
motion, okay.
I'm not on.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion on, the policy? If not, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I'm not voting. I just wanted to make a recommendation or let you all know that the remote work policy, that's a big thing now since COVID, and I think certainly Aileen knows, but we're working on a remote work policy that's taken a lot of time, that'll probably be brought up at the next government ops. So just so everybody knows. And I want to thank Shireen and everybody else. There's several people that worked on all these policies. It's taken forever. There's been a million meetings and it's a lot of work to remodel these policies. So I want to thank Shireen and everybody else that worked on it because it's taken a long time.
Terrible amount of pages, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Print it out.
Okay. Sheila, I believe that concludes your business, or is there anything else?
Nope, that'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to where we're supposed to be, if I can find it. Okay, Chris Palermo, County Attorney, no updates?
No updates.
Okay. Susan Dwyer, County Clerk.
I have 3 resolutions. I just want to mention a couple things. We've been really busy in the DMV. I don't know if anybody's walked by lately, but it's a little crazy in there. We're moving ahead with the Dreams Project. One disappointment is we were not funded for the Shared with Alaska New York State Archives grant. So they did give us a brief kind of explanation. Couple things I agree with, and certainly we can learn from this, but we're going to sit down with the town clerk there. She's going to talk to her board. I would like to go again next year and try to do that. We could add to what we had. Certainly we had some good points, but you know, they were looking for a couple things, like we were all just thinking digital. They said, well, you didn't really say what other kind of things you could do to update records. I don't know, but they made some good points too. So we're ready to pick up and move on, but we'll see. But I wanted to let you know that was disappointment. We're $20,000 over the revenue in the county clerk's recording office. We're crazy busy in there. Everything is up. And we're dealing with a lot of changes that were made by the state legislature in regard to income executions and judgments, and credit card debt. It's just nuts what's going on between the courts, the judge signing something at 2% and the civil office saying 9%. It's causing a lot of commotion across the state. Sooner or later, it'll come to fruition. I don't know. We're just every day struggling with that, but I'm actually holding regional meetings online just to talk to other county clerks and making sure we're together on this. And some county clerks are pistol permit county clerks, and of course, that's causing a lot of commotion as well. About 10 or 12 years ago, I handed that over to the sheriff. So there's about half the county clerks that do that or not, but it certainly is a lot of work to deal with all those changes. So, but I have 3 resolutions, so I don't know if you want to address them now.
Yes, please.
GO1, authorizing the county clerk to abolish part-time DMV cashier and create a full-time DMV cashier in the motor vehicle department. That comes from years and years of training a part-time cashier and having them resign. When you have a part-time, you have limited hours. So of course, in the quieter months, you're not going to use that clerk for those hours. We're going to use them when we most need them because of vacations. People take vacations in the spring, summer, and fall. We're not going to be taking it, around Christmas, very few. So because of that, they're not regular hours for a part-time cashier. But they still have to have all of the training. We've been through this, train the cashier, they resign, train the cashier, they resign. We've done it 5 or 6 times. It's a lot of work. And I'm asking for a full-time person for succession planning too. So we plan to have a retirement in about 2 years. And also to prepare for the onslaught of what's going to be a big change in the way our country has people travel. So in May 2023, everybody who wants to travel either domestically or internationally will have to have either a passport or an enhanced driver's license. We've already seen a great big surge in the passports. We're going to see a great big surge as soon as people in DMV realize, oh no, I can't even fly to North Carolina unless I have this enhanced. The enhanced driver's license, that's right, that's going to be a big change. Just like there was a big change, I forgot how many years ago, I was county clerk at the time, where you couldn't go to Canada without something. That's how big this is going to be. So on both sides of the lobby there, we'll be very, very busy with enhanced driver's license and passports. We probably will work extra. So I've mentioned that before. So right now, what it's like with the part-time and without a part-time person there and another full-time person, we are having a problem because we're busy. Then we work comp time, and then they take it as comp time. And, that puts us even more behind and with less people. There's a seniority in there. I mean, people have been there. People don't leave once they work there. If they're full-time in there, we've never had anybody just leave without retiring. So unless Shereen, she left us. And I don't blame her. She's doing a fantastic job. So, and she's helped throughout this. So, but that means they have lots of vacation time accrued too. It's just a vicious cycle. It doesn't make sense. Now, before, we also had retirees that were interested in working part-time. That's gone. None of the retirees are wanting to come back. So I'm left with hiring a full-time person. We certainly could use them. The good thing is too, we got civil service to agree that in occasion, when the county clerk needs help across the hall, they can help us. So that is another plus, especially with the Dreams Project. So given all of that, that is why I'm here asking to switch that part-time once and for all to a full-timer.
Okay, is there a motion for GO1?
I can move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Chris, thank you. We'll go ahead and
GO.
ask for further, no further
Oh, sorry.
discussion
Oh,
on GO1. Heidi?
In the resolution, you're increasing your budget. I don't see where there's another part of any other budget where you're pulling the money to fill the full-time. So where would that actual money come from?
well, we're a department that makes money. I don't know if you're saying that it's really, just because my departments make money doesn't mean that we should be making money when I need the staff. So I would say, I'm not, that money would just come from our revenue. But
No, I think she's asking, do you have enough money in your salary line? to
Right, I'm talking about your
actually-
actual
It-
2022 budget
so
line.
in our salary line right now, right, we have a seasonal, this is what we thought we could do, didn't work out. A seasonal worker, because we were gonna use somebody that retired. And then COVID hit, nobody wants to do it. So that person was in the budget for $5,000. And we had some we had the 5,000 for overtime, and that seasonal was $10,000. So there is some money in there for it. We'll cover the whole thing. No, I don't think
How
so.
do you do it?
Right, so that's my question.
Yeah,
So there's about, the full position is 42, 46 after step 4. And of that, there's about 15,000 budgeted. So I'm just wondering, because the resolution doesn't indicate where that other 30-some thousand would come from, I'm curious about what budget line it comes from.
Right.
I'll take a look at that, but I'm assuming there's still some money left in the part-time line that can be applied, but I'll get better detail for Ways and Means.
yeah, there definitely is that money because this person resigned and she would have used a lot more money. But she didn't, so she didn't use it. So we still have a balance left in her account. So there will be some money. Sorry, I don't have that amount.
Then,
Yeah, I guess because I would be dealing with this at Ways too. You'd have to have enough money in your .1, not your part-time line. And the question is, how do you have enough money in your .1 without making that .1, adding money to it to do this? Since you're not doing this at the time of your 2023 budget, you're doing it mid-year.
Right.
How do you anticipate having enough money to make, so that the line doesn't run out, is really your question.
Right, exactly.
Where would you get it from? General fund, not contingency, because there's no money left in that. So it's a matter of, if we pass this, you have to have funds enough to do it, right?
Attached to a particular budget, like is it general
Right.
fund, is it?
can we adjourn this to hold this for Ways and Means and have it?
Yeah, and get the right
Documented.
amount, because I don't think it's gonna be that much more, considering that. I think we will find it in a budget.
And you might have to move it from other lines, but the
Yeah.
resolution should reflect how you're planning on
Yes.
making yourself whole.
Yeah,
Because it will be an added cost for next year, but that you can budget for it this year. It's mid-year.
yeah, we absolutely don't want to wait until budget next year, because right now we're even behind the 8 ball in training. We have a person in there that's new in training right now for a full-time. And we're gonna have to train another person, and we gotta get them going. Really,
Okay.
so,
Let's Ways and Means.
but I will get all the,
So we'll hold this resolution for Ways and Means next
Sure.
Wednesday.
okay,
Okay, GO2,
GO2 is, so we're abolishing a full-time deputy clerk 3. We're not going to hire a person to fill that position. That's been vacant. We decided with all of the digitizing and everything else, that's not a good fit. So we are instead hiring, we would like to hire a full-time senior clerk position in the county clerk's office and abolish that deputy 3, and deputy 3 who is there now moves up to deputy 2. It's a little tricky, but it's saving a lot of money. So we do have money in the budget for that. Plenty of money.
Okay, is there a motion? Okay, a second? No?
I'm not on the committee. I'm just a
Okay.
free voter sitting here.
Second, okay. Discussion on GO2.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I've tried, can you just walk me through this? So on my notes here, I wrote that it's budget neutral. I also was confused as to why we're gonna fill the vacant full-time deputy 2. Why was that pushed on to this resolution? Because right now we have a deputy 3 and a deputy 1. We never filled the deputy 2 position.
But you budgeted it? Did you budget it?
Yes, it's been budgeted. So we're just, because it makes more sense not to have a 1 and a 3, but a 1 and a 2, we're just moving deputy 3 to deputy 2. No change in salary or anything. And we're gonna have a senior clerk instead of another deputy, which senior clerk is grade 8. It's pretty low, but that's what we think is going to fit the best. Okay. So it's a little, and it was very confusing to people. So we tried to separate it out a little bit to say, I tried to explain as best I could, obviously. It's still very confusing. I mean, if we still want to call, if we want to call deputy 3, we can and not move it up to deputy 2, but it just doesn't make sense to do that. It's just a name change.
Any video?
So to be clear, there's no change in budget.
No, there's a good change in budget for saving money. If we were paying a deputy, it'd be in the 50s. Instead, this is a grade 8 and it's 38 to 41. It's a big change.
Can I just ask a question? The deputy 2 and 3 though, even though they're different titles, they have no different salaries?
No, they don't.
What's the difference in them then?
It's just, they're supervisory. Deputy 1 does have a change because she has got a lot more supervisory. She is, in my absence, me, and she would.
But 2 and 3s make the same money?
They're just 2 and 3 make the same money. They did. They
Sounds
just,
cool. Yeah, it just sounds crazy, but.
it was crazy. Yeah.
Further questions? If not, all those in favor of GO2? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one opposed, it's carried. GO3,
I'd like to announce this one is so easy. Someone left our department. She was an index and recording clerk and she went to DMV. And we are replacing her.
motion for GO3,
I'll move it.
a second. Bob? Okay, any discussion on GO3? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
I also
Thank you.
want to I just want to say thank you to Buildings and Grounds. They have helped us with shredding. They have people over there helping us do the shredding at the Market Center. And it's really helped all of us. So,
Thank you. Yes, Jim?
I do have a question for Sue while she's here. So, you know what, I'll talk to you. I do have a question for you. Sue. About the DCs. No, I'll pass. I'll talk to her off the side. I don't want to hold everybody up.
Do we have to make a formal motion for tabling GO1?
No. Not as far as I'm concerned, but if it's holding it, bring it up at Ways and Means.
Yes,
Okay,
we'll get the information ahead of time.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tom, you still awake?
Yes, good evening. Yeah, so you have my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Just a update or addition to my report is just the final phase of the Chambers AB project is now underway. We had a lot of equipment on back order, but some of that has been received, including the fourth display you'll see now installed in Chambers and hooked to the system, and some speakers that we have added. We're waiting on the balance of the equipment, which includes some assistive listening devices and some controllers that will integrate with the system and finalize the project. We're waiting to receive those hopefully at the earliest in mid-August or sometime in late August. But the hope is to have the system fully completed and up and running in September. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, Tom?
Sir?
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Tom from switching from this entree to all the county employees. That should have been done years ago, but I really give you a lot of credit for doing that. Now everybody works for us in the county.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay. Kevin Swab, is he on at all?
I think he's away.
He's gone away, okay.
I think he's at training.
Okay, I believe we're done for the evening. If somebody wants to adjourn,
Move.
say so. Here we go, okay. Second, okay, all those in favor of adjournment, aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you.
Yeah. You didn't have to worry about getting a motion on that one, did you?
Die tonight, everybody.